Alrighty, hi. I am going to try to do some reading. It's 10 o'clock. I'm really tired, but I don't see doing this anytime too soon. The contractors are coming early tomorrow, and they'll probably be here all day. So I did want to do a little bit. Anyway, I am reading chapter 4 of the Walk in the Light series, Restoration by Todd Bennett. And I suck at reading. I cannot pronounce. I stumble, I stutter. And I really do want to get through this. It is interesting. I do suggest that you actually just buy the book and read it. It'd probably be a lot more beneficial than hearing me read it, and then you can read the scriptures along with it. But anyway, I was on chapter 4 about paganism. So I will pick up where I left off. Jeroboam, the king of the house of Israel, did not want his people going to Jerusalem for fear that he would lose his hold on power. Therefore, he established worship centers within the territories of the tribe in his kingdom. In doing so, he committed the same abomination which Israel committed when they left Egypt, only this time it was twice the abomination, and it was done within the land. This was a terrible reproach to Yahweh because the northern tribes were committing idolatry, which was a spiritual adultery. The house of Yehuda ended up falling into paganism as well, but in a different way. They built booths in the area of the house of Yahweh and mixed the worship of false gods within the worship of Yahweh. They turned the house of Yahweh into veritable pantheon. The prophets Ezekiel and Jeremiah described the abomination they committed, which included erecting pagan statues and images, making cakes, and burning incense to the Queen of Heaven, pouring out drink offerings to pagan gods, weeping for Tezmu, and praying to the sun. Ezekiel 8, Jeremiah 7, and 44. And those would be the complete chapter. Jeremiah chapter 7 and 44, which I need to go back and read. As we read in the previous chapter, Queen of Heaven was the title taken on the Semiramis, also known as Ishtar in Babylon. This fertility goddess was known as Ashtar in Canaan, Isis in Egypt. She was known as Venus by the Romans and Aphrodite by the Greeks. These are all the same goddess, but again, she had different names in different cultures. Currently, we see the Catholic Church calling Mary the Queen of Heaven, which is a tradition tracing directly back to Babylon. As a result of the various abominations of Israel and Yehuda, both houses were removed from the land and were scattered throughout the world, not unlike what happened to the original Babylonians. Since they wanted to worship like pagans, they were scattered amongst pagan cultures. Yahweh was not going to allow them to commit these acts in his land and in his house, just as to no husband would knowingly allow his wife to commit adultery in their marital home or in their marriage bed, instead of scattering them to spread their idolatry through idolatry. Though Yahweh sent them into the idolatrous world so that he could later regather them and redeem them through his plan of restoration. We read in the scriptures about some brief periods of restoration which Yehuda experienced, but the land and the people who lived there would remain under the control of foreigners, nations, for thousands of years. As a result of this foreign occupation, the land continued to be filled with pagans and pagan worship, although the original Canaanites' deities were replaced with other gods and goddesses bearing different names. In the 4th century BCE, Alexander the Great conquered parts of the Mediterranean and Middle East, Africa, and India. One of the methods used by Alexander to pacify his conquered peoples and maintain peace and order throughout his kingdom was the process known as Hellenization. Hellenization was the process wherein Alexander spread the Greek language and the aspects of Greek society throughout his empire. As he continued his conquest, sometimes he would incorporate elements of conquered civilization and spread them along with the Greek culture. This developed into a fairly unified society, which was also flexible enough to accommodate the unique religious and cultural practices of differing regions. What resulted was an expansive military and economic power, which, as a society, was pagan at its core. Interestingly, Alexander died at a young age in Babylon, the city which he planned to make the capital of his new empire. And I'm going to stop there. I don't really have a lot to say. I mean, I could go on a rant about different religions and practices, and there's so much information out there. It's amazing. And that is one of the reasons why I don't go to church, because when you go to church, if you ask them any questions that they don't like, they shut you down. I've been shut down. They don't want to discuss it. They don't want to hear it. So I just don't go. And I don't, I love to discuss it with people, but it's hard to discuss it when they start getting angry. And I get it, some people are passionate about their beliefs, and you're not going to change the way they think, and that's not what I'm trying to do. I have to admit, I am not on track here at all. At all. My life has been so chaotic and a mess. I need to get back. I need to get back to where I used to be 3 years ago. And it's hard. It's hard, and life makes it hard, and it shouldn't. I should be more disciplined. But when you're a caregiver and you have all this other stuff, pulling at you, it does make it more challenging. So I'm going to bed. I am tired. I will continue later, and I will continue to read. And maybe next time I will have some comments or, some current events or something to plug in there. So with that, I'm going to say goodnight. Y'all have a blessed day.